Hello and welcome to today's session. I hope you're all doing amazingly well from whichever part of the world you are watching. Today is for those wellness leaders who really wanted to attend one of my free masterclasses, but for whatever reason, I know how daily operations can get, you were unable to catch me live. But don't worry, I'm going to make sure that today you have access, at least big picture access to all the teachings in the masterclass, because I think that it's so important for wellness leaders to get this message. A recurring theme throughout all the three masterclasses I ran was that wellness leaders in hotels, so you could be a spa manager, a spa supervisor, spa director, wellness manager, wellness director, whoever you are, fundamentally deep down, you feel that you're invisible, that your ideas don't count as much as, for example, the director of rooms or the director of food and beverage or the director of sales and marketing or the director of people and culture, etc., etc., etc. And here's the thing. The reason you feel that you're invisible, that your ideas don't count, is that maybe in the past you have plucked the courage to come up with ideas and you have gone to present them to your GM, to your director of finance, only to find out that they did not approve of it. And that could partly be because the idea was not convincing enough, or that you find yourself in such an intimidating situation where it's like, oh my God, I have to tell them these ideas and the words weren't coming out right. You know what you want. You know that what you're proposing is going to drastically help revenue and team satisfaction and guest satisfaction. But somehow, when you are pitching what you want, you just don't make that connection. And because you didn't make that connection, your ideas did not get approved. And you do that once, and that kind of puts a span in work in your confidence. And then it happens to you a second time, maybe a third time. And beyond that, you stop going to your GM or to your director of finance, sales, and marketing with new or different ideas. Because deep down, you think, what's the point? So essentially, what you do is you fail ahead of time. It's a lot easier to say, okay, what's the point? I'm not going to try because they're not going to listen anyway. That feels a lot more comfortable than going all in and preparing your proposal and presenting it to your GM and getting rejected or being asked questions that you really don't know how to answer. So when our wellness leaders, when you feel invisible, what ends up happening is you work longer hours, you take out even more initiatives, you work days on end, you just grind more to prove yourself. And as a result, you see that all the work you are doing is still not producing the results your GM or your director of finance wants. And that further perpetuates the belief that wellness is an amenity department, that me as a wellness leader, I'm undervalued, I'm overworked, I'm underpaid. And as a result, what happens is that you don't really have any influence in the hotel hierarchy. Whatever your idea is, whatever you propose, doesn't, continue. It continues to be sidelined. And you're seen as the department head instead of a strategic leader. And as a result, you can't make the impact you know you can. So I want to help every single wellness leader out there to get out of these chains that you've tied yourself. And that's true. I will also make it clear that I know there are certain hoteliers that probably don't get wellness the way we wellness leaders do. But if we stop and think, is it their job to get wellness? the way we wellness leaders do? Is it their job to really understand wellness? They're general managers. And by the very name, they're generic leaders. And they rely on the specialist leaders to give them the direction they need. So food and beverage does the same, rooms does the same, and wellness is no different. You are expected to do that. And if you just look at the trajectory of how hotel GMs have got to where they are, they've either taken the rooms kind of trajectory or the food and beverage. There are few who have gone through sales and marketing, directors of finance, but the vast majority, just the way the business has been set up, it's only normal that they come from rooms and food and beverage. And if you've walked those floors, it is clear that you're always going to kind of veer towards someone whose language you understand because you've walked those shoes. So if your GM comes from a rooms background, of course, they're going to focus more on rooms. It's only normal. And here's the reality. There are only a handful of GMs out there in the world who actually come from a wellness background, who've worked their way up from wellness right through GM right through to the GM level. So now clearly, if that percentage is probably only 1% of all hotel GMs, clearly they're not going to understand wellness the way you do. They're never going to get it the way you do. And you expecting them to get it is not very reasonable. So here is what you can do to change things around. So I call it my 3-step formula, and it is called speak, build, and lead. So with speak, the idea is that you speak a language that your GM, your director of sales and marketing, your director of finance actually listens to. And when they listen to you, you have the opportunity to get their attention. So you're no longer that invisible person. You are that person who they listen to because you have taken the time to speak to them in a language that they understand, instead of expecting them to learn your language and understand your needs. And once you have got your hotelier colleagues' attention, the next step is to earn their trust. And you earn their trust through building with intention. So you're not just taking out any old random treatment offer or bringing a product brand, adding a new bling piece of equipment. Instead, whatever you are building is aligning with the hotel's overall goals and objectives. That is what I call building with intention. And when you build with intention, the likelihood of all the initiatives you are doing, the likelihood of them of achieving or helping your hotel achieve their goals is a lot higher than you just randomly taking out any initiative, working longer hours, training your team more. Because those initiatives in of themselves are not bad. But what they don't do is they don't help move the needle. And what moves the needle is ensuring that all the actions you are taking are aligned to helping the hotel achieve its goals. And when they are aligned, the likelihood, as I mentioned, is a lot higher for the hotelier colleagues to achieve their goals. And when you deliver result, you earn trust. So when you're giving them the results they're looking for, you are earning their trust. So in speak, what you're doing is speaking in the language they listen to. And that is what makes you seen. That's what gives you the attention. And once you've got their attention, then you start earning their trust. And you do that through building with intention, building your wellness offering in a way that helps the hotel achieve its overall goals and objectives. And once you have earned their trust, once you've delivered results, the next step is to lead. So go and take your seat at the hotel's big table. You're leading without permission. And that is what helps you gain the influence you need in order to create that impact you want to create. And you know you can very capably create. But it won't happen if you're continuously thinking that wellness is the amenity department. They don't get me. They don't understand me. My ideas don't count. Hence, I will not propose anything new. And then you wonder why you don't have the influence that you so badly want and need in order to make the impact you want. So here is how you speak, build, and lead. When you want to speak someone's language, or you want to speak to someone in a way that they listen to you, it's only natural that you use words that you know will resonate or hit home with them. That is the same with your GM and hotelier. If you want them to listen to you, learn the few key words that they actually listen to, keywords that they understand. And that starts with thinking about the outcomes of whatever you are proposing. And once you think in business outcomes, the next step is to use data, facts, to actually show how you're going to help them achieve their business outcomes. And once you have used that data, the next step is to actually ensure you are delivering those results. That whatever you propose, you are seeing the results. Once you've got your GM's attention, the next stage is building with intention. And when you build with intention, you first start with the end goal, then you choose the actions. It's pretty much when you go into your car, and here in Spain, I'm using Google Maps. I do not go start figuring out how am I going to get to this road or the other road or whatever. I directly put in the destination I want to go to. And then Google Maps churns out the different routes. And I get to choose which route I want. That is what your hotelier colleagues are looking for. Start with that end goal and then give them various options of how wellness can help them get to their goal. And then what you need to do is to track your progress. In our wellness facilities, I'm just in awe of how many KPIs we measure for our regional team, for our property, for our global departments. And then no one tells you what those KPIs mean. And no one even double checks that you're calculating them correctly. So essentially, you're not even comparing apples with apples. But the number of hours you spend, your team spending creating those KPIs is truly mind-blowing. And you know what? There is no way in any property the director of finance has said, yes, this helps me. Until I just came up with one figure, one KPI. And that is how much revenue does wellness represent to total hotel revenue? When I first found out, I was just gobsmacked. 1 to 3%, some cases 8%, maybe you're lucky you go to 18 or 20%, depending on which part of the world you are. But rarely does it go beyond that. Just imagine if all your focus was spent on just moving that needle by 1 percentage point. It'll be mind-blowing, the results you'll get. The support you'll get from other colleagues would be mind-blowing. And lastly, so once you're starting with the goal, not the action, you're actually tracking the progress you're making, not just a list of KPIs that no one understands. The next and final step within Build with Intention within earning your hotelier colleagues' trust is to think in ecosystems and not lists of services. The amount of menus I see that are just a long list of we have to have these facials, these body wraps, these natural therapies, etc., etc., etc. And they normally tend to be divided by brands. That doesn't help anyone. Your job is not to manage a list of services or a department. Your job is to create an ecosystem of value. So each of the treatments and services and products you have to feed off one another, and they have to form part of an ecosystem. So instead of trying to train your whole team in every single treatment, find which are the top sellers. Train your teams on the top sellers, the top 3, not more, and then create spin-off treatments of those top 3 sellers. So you've only trained once. And if your team can do a 90-minute ritual, they can definitely do the individual parts to it. So that is how you think in ecosystems instead of a list of services. And that is what helps you get the results you need. So you are delivering something that your GM or hotelier needs. You're helping them achieve the goals. And once you've delivered on that, you've earned their trust. And once you've earned the trust, the last step of lead is about leading with conviction, not consensus. And when I say lead with conviction and not consensus, I am not saying go be reckless or bulldoze everyone's ideas. No. When someone leads with conviction, they know that the end goal is inevitable. And they also know that they will make sure that they will deliver on that instead of getting consensus before launching that. That is also what helps you gain influence. And once you're leading with conviction and not consensus, the next step is to rally cross-departmental support. If you think that you as a wellness leader alone can achieve success, you're hugely mistaken. And this is something I learned the hard way in my career, trying to just safeguard my wellness profit and loss and not caring about rooms of food and beverage. And that defensive attitude did not serve me. I started seeing mind-blowing success with wellness when wellness actually made rooms and food and beverage and even people and culture grow. So success is something that you have to ensure that everyone's success also means your success. You just can't vouch for wellness. You have to make the whole be successful. And when rooms win, so does food and beverage, and so does wellness. It's as simple as that. And this is what helps you gain the influence you need. Now, can you see how every single action that I've talked about is well within your control? As a wellness leader, you don't need your GM to believe in you in order to speak in a language that you know they listen to. You don't need your GM to get wellness in order to build with an intention, in order to use wellness to help them achieve the bigger picture goal. It's ultimately the entire ship is going that way. You have to row with it. And lastly, once you have earned your hotelier colleagues' trust, that is when you gain the influence. That is when you claim the rightful seat at the hotel's big table. That's when you're leading with conviction and not consensus. And that's when you become the future leader wellness needs. And it's also the future version of yourself You know you can actually be. So, this is what the core message was in the free masterclasses I've been running. I want wellness leaders to know that it's a thought, it's a belief that you're choosing to think that you're invisible, that your ideas don't count, that no matter what you do and however long you work, that you're undervalued, underpaid, overworked, and that you really don't have any influence, authority over making any change in wellness. Because that is not true. If you just learn a few words to speak in a language that your GMs understand, you will get their attention. And once you get their attention, you start positioning wellness as the solution, wellness as that value offering that helps the hotel achieve its goals. And when you actually deliver results, you earn their trust. And once they trust you, that is when you gain influence. That is when you are the one who's calling the shots. That is when you can finally make the impact you know you can make, and the reason why you joined this industry. So, on that note, I wish you all a beautiful day ahead. Take care now.